Alright, that was the principles and the political system. Now let's see the practical aspects of it. You see, the Ishopanishad says, Isha Vasedam Sarvam. Everything that exists belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna also claims that he is the proprietor of all planetary systems, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Since this is the case, no one can claim to be the proprietor of the state. The king, president, or head of the state should always remember that he is not the proprietor, but the servant. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram Yadnatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Surudam Sarvabhutanam Jnatma Mam Shanti Vricchati. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the ultimate proprietor of all planets and is therefore enjoyer of activities, political, social, cultural, religious, economic, and so on. That makes sense to you?
Yes.
And thus naturally, the Supreme Leader is God.
God, yes, okay. Yes, Supreme Leader is God.
Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam Aham Adir Hi Devanam. Everyone says, do not accept leader, accept me as the leader. That is all. But our proposal is, without leader, nothing can be done. And the Supreme Leader is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And his representative should become the leader. Then the society will be perfect. The Supreme Leader is God.
Oh, what is with this leadership?
You see, a leader leads everyone. He tells where to go.
Yes, so?
You see, Krishna is the Supreme Leader, but we manufacture our own leadership. That is the defect. They'll do in their own way, concocting some ideas. And your ideas will clash with me. My idea will clash with you. The same struggle continues. The leader must be perfect. If the leader is blind, how can I accept such a blind leader? Say, I am blind, therefore I am asking, can you help me cross the road? Another blind. Yes, come on, I shall. Why shall I accept? First of all, I shall ask, you have got eyes? No, I am also blind. What is this nonsense? Andhayathandayir upaniyamana. One blind man leading another blind man.
Yes, true. The leader should have eyes.
Not only that, but one must accept Krishna is the Supreme Leader.
Yes, true. Krishna is the Supreme Leader.
And since Krishna or Vishnu is the Supreme Proprietor and the Supreme Leader, then our aim should be to satisfy him and work his plan, not ours.
Okay, yes. We should follow and satisfy the Supreme Leader. That makes sense, yes.
So satisfying Vishnu is the thing. The Vedas maintain that a kingdom should be governed for the purpose of satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Okay.
And since Supreme Leader is God, so he gives instruction. Laws means actual dharmam tu sakshat bhagavad pranito. For God said that is actual religion or law. The law given by Supreme Head of the cosmic manifestation, that is religion. And the law given by God is religion. That is our simple definition. Religion cannot be manufactured as law cannot be manufactured.
Oh, now it makes so much sense. So if I understand it correctly, Krishna is the Supreme Leader and his plan or orders or law for the human are called dharma or religion. And since we are followers of law, we can't make the laws at home. It has to be told by the Lord and Supreme Leader and the proprietor of everything.
Exactly.
And that's why dharmam tu sakshat bhagavad pranito. Yes.
Exactly.
What if someone does not follow the laws given by God and makes his own plans?
It will never be fulfilled. But still, they will make plan. Then Napoleon made a plan. Hitler made a plan, Churchill made a plan, Gandhi made a plan, Mussolini made a plan, but the plan and the plan makers all washed away. These things are going on as it is. Therefore, Krishna says, Sarvadharman Parityajya, don't make plans. Take my plan. You'll be happy. I'll give you. This plan making, our government has got plan making commission.
Yes.
The planning commission has brought people in such a condition that they are dying out of starvation and they are taking salary, big fat salary. That is going on, yes. Thus, the people in the democratic nations of the world should elect Krishna conscious leaders who will establish an administration consonant with the laws of God. If they fail to do so, their materialistic leaders, oblivious to the will of the Supreme Lord, will undoubtedly be chastised by cataclysmic events. And the people who elected such leaders, being responsible for their leaders' acts, will share in the suffering. Yah Shastra Vidimat Surjam Vartate Kamakartha. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that anyone who lives on concocted ideas without reference to scriptures never becomes successful and does not attain happiness or liberation after death.
This is serious.
I'm glad you can understand the value of dharmas, the actual laws for human beings. But I tell you what, it's more serious than you comprehend.
Sure, sure it is. So, since we accept Krishna's leadership and we should follow his laws, then for practical purposes, who should be the leader?
So tell me, if we are supposed to accept Krishna as the leader and we should follow his laws, then for practical purposes, who should be the leader?
One who follows and implements these laws for general public.
Perfect. In other words, a leader should be representative of Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yes.
God. The king is called Nripadev or Naradev. Although he is in human form of body, he is God. In the present age, the king or the president forgets that he is the servant of God and thinks himself as the servant of people. The supreme leader is Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his representative should become the leader. Then the society will be perfect. The Vedas maintain that a kingdom should be governed for the purpose of satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead and should be therefore ruled by a representative of Lord. The king, the president, or head of the state should always remember that he is not the proprietor but the servant. Because the king is supposed to be the representative of God, Naradev. Now the representative of God must be abiding by the laws of God.
Yes, certainly. And Prabhuji, the king is above law, right?
The king is supposed to be representative of God in the state. So above the law means because king is perfect by abiding the laws of Krishna, he cannot be subjected to any subordinate laws. But his perfection is there only when he follows Krishna's order. Anyone who has got some power, he must know that this power is given by Krishna onto me and to execute his will, not my sense gratification. Otherwise, it will be a burden and he will be punished. This is laws of God. Thus, the people in the democratic nations, as I said, of the world should elect a Krishna conscious leader who will establish an administration consonant with the laws of God. The representative of God must be very obedient to God, and then his position will be legitimate.
Makes sense. Yes. But what happens if they are not following orders of God?
That is unfortunately Avanidurga condition.
Avanidurga?
Yes, Avanidurga is not abiding by the laws of God. Those who are trying to capture governmental posts for his personal ambition, they will be killed. They will be killed. This way or that way, they will be killed. And persons who are taking responsibility for maintaining a government as a representative of Krishna, they will be blessed by Krishna, and Krishna will be pleased. If they fail to do so, their materialistic leaders, oblivious to the will of the Supreme Lord, will undoubtedly be chastised by cataclysmic events. And the people who elected such leaders, being responsible for their leaders' act, will share in the suffering. Since you're creating a rebellious condition, that's an avanidurga. These rascals who are going against the laws of God, they are rebellious. So they're rebellious. The king's duty is to see as a representative of Krishna. Otherwise, what right he has got to take so much honor from the citizens? He has no right.
If some leader is not following the God's plan, then what should be done? What used to happen in the Vedic times?
Dethroned. Such a king or leader is dethroned or sometimes even killed.
Really? Why dethroned or killed?
Yes, he is missing the whole purpose of governance, that is satisfying Vishnu. If he is not following Vishnu's plan, then what's the value of his leadership to the general public? Nothing. He is missing the common cause. Remember, satisfying Vishnu is the common cause. Therefore, dethroned.
True, very true. Yes, okay. Yes.
You see, to avoid Avanidurga, he was guided by a council of learned sages and Brahmins. They were looking over the activities of the king. As soon as there was some mistake, they will see. And there are instances, whenever there was a bad king, they were dethroned, not for political purposes. First class man, Rujivira Shikshaya, they used to teach, they used to advise, and if the king was worthless, sometimes they would kill the king. And the next son, his son would take possession. So that was government. If the Brahmins would see that the Kshatriyas, the kings, were not ruling properly according to Vedic principles, sometimes they would kill the king.
Okay, but what is that God's law in practical sense? How do we get the God's law?
God's words, they are the laws. God's words like the Vedic scriptures like Manu Samhita and Bhagavad Gita, especially the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is God's law, and they come to us by disciplic succession.
I see.
Because king is the representative of Krishna, Imam Vivasvate Yogan Proktavan Aham Avyayam. He first of all said the laws, the Bhagavad Gita, which is so important for the human civilization, millions of years, at least 40 millions of years, it was spoken to the sun god. And sun god gave it to his son Manu, and his son Ikshvaku inherited from Manu. This way, the absolute law is coming by disciplic succession. And formerly, India was governed by monarchy. They received the law of God by disciplic succession. They executed. This is the age of Vivasvat Manu. And from him came his son Ikshvaku. So by parampara system, if we take Krishna's instruction is already there. If the governments all over the world take Krishna's instruction, then every government will be perfect and there will be no disturbance of peace and happiness. That will be a perfect world. Krishna has given instruction in all fields of activity. Simply we have to take it practically. The supreme leader is God. He gives instruction, and the real leader takes the instruction by disciplic succession, and for the benefit of the total human society, they spread the message of God.
I see. I get it.
At this point, I want to bring your attention to a very important concept regarding leader.
What is that?
Rajarshi.
Joshi?
Yes, Rajarshi. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavan aham avyayam vivasvan manave praha manurikshva kave bravit. Formerly, kings were Rajarshis, which meant that although they were serving as kings, they were as good as saintly persons because they would not transgress any injunction of Vedic scriptures and would rule under the direction of great saintly persons and Brahmins. Therefore, a certain man, qualified man who enjoys the confidence of people, he is accepted as the king. This is the position. So such president, king or the executive head must be a saintly person. Therefore, even Bhagavatam in Parikshit Maharaj section, it is said, Parikshin Nama Rajarshi. Rajarshi means those who are on the top of the government, he must be a rishi, saintly person. Just like this, our Krishna consciousness movement, the head of the institution must be a saintly person. Otherwise, how can he become a controller? Controller one must be. That is what is the qualification of a controller. He must be a saintly person. He must know what is the principle of life, what is the value of life, why one should be controlled by somebody else. These things are required to become qualified.
True, true. If the leader is leading so many people and even one, then he must be a saintly person. That is understandable, yes. Also, since Bhagavad Gita is the law, he must also understand the Bhagavad Gita, right?
Precisely. But not only the leader, but all the government officials, they all must understand the laws, the Vedas, very well.
Yes, yes, yes.
Sainyapattyam cha rajam cha dandanetrutvameva cha sarvalokadipattyam cha Veda Shastra Vidarhati. In this verse, it is clearly stated Veda Shastra Vidarhati that all high government posts are especially meant for persons who are well conversant with the teachings of the Vedas. In the Vedas, there are definite instructions defining how a king, commander-in-chief, soldier and citizen should behave.
I see. But Prabhuji, coming back to the point of Rajarshi, it seems to be a very high qualification. How do you get such a Rajarshi?
Training. Rajarshi means he is trained as such. One person, well talented, well trained as the head of the government, very peacefully he could execute the government function. Now your Senate is proposing, let us pray to God how we can get good government. They're coming down to again. But why not train? If a person is perfect, the government is perfect. If the person is a fool, the government is a fool's paradise. That is the law of nature. There are so many stories of imperfect kings, executive heads. Therefore, the executive head must be a trained person like Maharaj Yudhishthir.
Who trains him?
Dvijavira Shikshaya, the best of Brahmins.
Why Dvijavira Shikshaya?
So how this knowledge can be gotten unless one is trained by Dvijavira Shikshaya, first class Brahmins? One has to learn from him, not from rascals, fools, cats and dogs, no. That is not learning. Dvijavira Shikshaya. The best ruling is monarchy, and monarch means he must be a perfectly trained person by best Brahmins. That is perfect government. And as I said, now your Senate is proposing, let us pray to God we get a good government. They're coming down to again. But why not train?
Yes, exactly.
So Bhrugupati, Brahmadhuva, the administrative class, the politicians, they must obey the orders of Brahmins. So in those days we learn Dvijavirya Shikshaya. Actually the Brahmins, they were controlling the state. Not directly, not sitting on the throne, but giving the king good advice according to Shastra. That you rule like this. This is the process. And the king would abide by. Although the monarch was there, but they were not irresponsible. So king in Vedic civilization, the king was absolutely following the revelation given by God, and it was confirmed by saintly persons and sages. Then it was executed, not whimsically. There was an advisory board of monarch always.
Advisory board of Brahmins?
Yes. Sainyapattyam cha rajam cha dandanetrutvameva cha sarvalokadipattyam cha Veda Shastra Vidarhati. In this verse, it is very clearly stated that a kingdom, state, or empire must be governed under the instructions of saintly persons and Brahmins like the Kumaras. When the monarch ruled throughout the world, the monarch was actually directed by a board of Brahmins and saintly persons. The king, as the administrator of the state, executed his duties as a servant of the Brahmins.
So you mean to say that the leaders were not autocrats?
Exactly. Leaders or Kshatriyas are not autocrats, but Brahmadhuva, Brahminical society. All the Kshatriyas, kings, would be always accompanied by hordes of Brahmins. As soon as they required any instruction, immediately consult Brahmins, and they would give good advice. Do like this, This is the business of Brahman. And the kings, they would not do anything without consulting. Don't think that because he was the monarch, he was all autocrat. No. If the Brahmins would not agree, they wouldn't do. The Brahmins community, all saintly persons and learned scholars, Brahmins, there was a committee. The king would take their advice how to manipulate the political affairs or administration, and they would consult standard books. Standard books. Such noble king is not an autocrat, but is guided by Brahmins how to rule. So, Raghupati, Brahmadruga, the administrative class, the politicians, they must obey the Brahmins. This is the Vedic culture. Therefore, although there was monarch, king, one king, no democracy, but because the king would follow the instructions of the learned sages and Brahmins, they would rule over the country very nicely. Take for example, if your president takes our advice how to rule, then everything will be nice. So Brahmadua, the society must be Brahmanical.
Oh, I see. That's why Prabhupada talks so much about Brahminical society.
Yes, the Brahmanas would advise, but not any Brahmanas,
Then, which Brahmanas?
only Vaishnava Brahmanas. Here Prabhupada tells about Maharaj Amrish. The Lord has given perfect advice in Bhagavad Gita, and Amrish Maharaj, as the ideal executive head, ruled the entire world as a Vaishnava, taking advice from Vaishnava Brahman. The Shastras enjoin that even though a Brahmana may be well versed in occupational Brahminical duties and may be very learned in Vedic knowledge, he cannot give advice as a guru until he is a Vaishnava.
Interesting.
Yes. Satkarma nipuno vipro mantra tantra visharadaha avaishnavo guru nasyad vaishnava shvapacho guroho. Therefore, as indicated by the words, as in Srimad Bhagavatam 9.4.21, Tannishtha viprabhitaha shashasaha. Maharaj Amrish took advice from Brahmanas who were pure devotees of the Lord. For ordinary Brahmins who are merely learned scholars or expert in performing ritualistic ceremonies are not competent to give advice. In modern times, there are legislative assemblies whose members are authorized to make laws for the welfare of the state. But according to this description of kingdom of Maharaj Amrish, the country or the world should be ruled by a chief executive whose advisors are all devotee Brahmins. Such advisors or members of the legislative assembly should not be professional politicians, nor should they be selected by ignorant public. Rather, they should be appointed by the king. When the king, the executive head of the state, is a devotee and he follows the instructions of a devotee Brahmin in the ruling of the country, everyone will be peaceful and prosperous.
But today's leader do not take advice from Vaishnava Brahmins. What happens to them?
They are blindly following some way of life. Blind men, certainly, without guidance, we are falling down in the ditch. Once this human life is missed, he falls down into the ditch. He becomes a tree, stand up there for 1000 years. What you can do? This risk they are taking. They do not believe. Therefore, there is next life. And where from this life came varieties. These rascals do not have brain. They are passing as scientists, politicians, philosophers, all rascals, 10th classmen. Tell them, unfortunately, in the present age of Kali, the head of the government does not follow the instruction given by the saintly persons. Therefore, neither the citizens nor the men of the government are very happy. Their duration of life is shortened, and almost everyone is wretched and bereft of bodily strength and spiritual power. If the citizens want to be happy and prosperous in this democratic age, they should not elect rascals and fools who have no respect for saintly persons. They should not elect such persons.
True. They must follow learned Vaishnava Brahmins' advice. Yes, true.
Yes, and the Vaishnava Brahman must advised by authorized scriptures the laws of God.
Yes, naturally, yes.
See, there was a committee and the king would take their advice how to manipulate the political affairs or administration, and they would consult standard books. The learned Brahmin would advise the king in terms of those standard books of knowledge with the reference to particular situation of time and place. Such Brahmins were not paid servants of the king, and therefore they had the strength to dictate the king on principles of scriptures. The Brahmanas, they gave guidance according to Shastra, and the king is trained up in such a way that he takes instruction from saintly persons and Brahmins and rules over the kingdom. Therefore, it was so perfect. Also, it was important that the leader or king must have complete executive power.
Yes. So that he can implement God's laws for the citizens to follow.
Yes, according to Vedic civilization, in a monarchy, the king is advised by saintly persons and sages. By taking their advice, he can become the greatest executive power, and everyone in his kingdom will be happy, peaceful, and prosperous. The modern executive head of the state is just like a puppet because he has no kingly power. Even if he is enlightened like the Maharaj Yudhishthir, he cannot do anything out of his own goodwill due to his constitutional position. And as God's representative, what is his duty?
What?
Like we present ourselves as God's representative, Krishna's representative. Then what is our duty? What is our business? What are we doing? We are trying to lead others to God consciousness. Huh? That is the proof that I am God's representative.
Of course. To make people God conscious is the duty of the representative of God. Naturally. Makes so much sense.
Yes, the Kshatriyas or the ruling administrator of any part of the universe, either on this planet or another planet, are factually the representatives of the Almighty Personality of Godhead, and they are meant to lead the subjects toward the path of God realization. Every state and its administrators, regardless of the nature of administration, monarchy or democracy, oligarchy or dictatorship or autocracy, have the prime responsibility to lead the citizens towards God realization. This is essential for all human beings, and it's the duty of the Father, spiritual master, and ultimately the state to take up the responsibility of leading the citizens towards this end. Similarly, if the state or state executive head, the president or the king, is taken, accepted as a representative, his first and foremost duty is to train the citizens to become God conscious. If he is lacking in that duty, he is not fit to become the executive head, king of the. So, this is a nice philosophy that the state, the president or the king, whatever his name is the representative of God. Therefore, his duty is to train citizens to become God conscious, pious, without any sinful life.
Yes.
Also, the government should see that the citizens are happy. That is the duty of the government. It may be monarchy or democracy. The first duty of the government is to see that all citizens, they are feeling happy. That is the duty of the government.
Yes.
Now, the king means Krishna's representative, Naradev. The king is supposed to act on behalf of Krishna.
Yes.
Just like Krishna's business is paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkutam.
Yes.
Similarly, king's business is to give protection to the faithful and punish the unfaithful.
I see. Interesting. This was an interesting concept. Since Krishna does paritranaya sadhunam, so as Krishna's representative, the leader must also do this business. Right. It's so natural. If just we accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead as our leader, the rest makes so much sense and seems so natural. I'm so happy to understand it in this perspective.
Exactly. Thanks to Prabhupada.
Yes, thanks to Prabhupada.
As Lord Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita, when he descends on the earth, he has two types of business: to give protection to the faithful and annihilate the demons. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkrutam. And As the representative of the Lord, the king had the duty to protect the citizens in a perfect way so that they would not be anxious for food and protection. So they would be jubilant.
Yes. Prabhuji, you talked about the training to the citizens. What is the training given to the citizens?
So this is nice philosophy that the state, the president, the king, or whatever his name is, the representative of God. Therefore, his duty is to train the citizens to become God conscious, pious, without any self life. If the citizens are trained to become devotees, they will automatically become peaceful and honest. If they are guided by a devoted king, advised by devotees, the state will no longer be in material world, but in the spiritual world.
Surely, spiritual world.
Also, they are trained into Varnashram.
Varnashram, everyone?
Yes. So it doesn't matter. Everyone is born Shudra, but he should be trained up. Just like in our practical life, we see that everyone is not born scientist or engineer or lawyer. Everyone is born innocent, child. Then he is trained up by guardians. Similarly, there should be training how to become Brahman, how to become Kshatriya, how to become Vaishya. And the governments should see that everyone, as he is trained up, he is working according to his quality and occupational duty. Varnashram Dharma. That is stated in Bhagavad Gita. Chaturvarna maya srishtam, guna karma vibhagasha. Qualified. Therefore, we want qualified Brahmins, qualified Kshatriyas. At the present moment, without being qualified, they are passing as Brahman, Kshatriyas. That is not Varnashram. Without being qualified, they are all Shudras, all Chandalas. But when they are properly trained and qualified, then it is Varnashram, a real Varnashram. And of course, they must be trained to work for the common cause. That is Vishnu.
Yes, naturally, of course. The common cause.
Because they are not trained up, they have no common cause. The hand and the leg working differently. But the common cause is to maintain the body. So, if you find out the common cause for both the capitalist and the workers, then there will be no fighting. But if you do not know the common cause, then there will always be fighting. Just like in our Krishna conscious society. We come to consult Prabhupada about every activity because he can give us the common cause. Otherwise, there will be fighting. The government should be very expert to know the aim of life, the common cause, and they should train people to work for the common cause. Then they will be happy and peaceful.
Yes.
So, Brahmadva, the society must be Brahminical. Vedic culture means to create every person Brahmana, not to keep him Shudra. Of course, in the modern education system, the purpose is to elevate the general public, but they do not know how to elevate. Therefore, there is so much trouble. The elevation should be, there must be some purpose, and what purpose education is being given? It is purposeless education. Education means to lead people gradually to Krishna consciousness. That is education, God consciousness.
Yes, very true.
Now, do you have any questions regarding the...
Yes.
Okay, go on.
Prabhuji, I might ask some questions that you have already clarified, but still I wish to ask you just to confirm them.
Alright, no problem.
Okay, so here we start. What is the actual duty of the government?
To understand what God wants and to see that the society works towards that aim. Then people will be happy. But if the people work in the wrong direction, how can they be happy? The government's duty is to see that they are working in the right direction. The right direction is to know God and to act according to His instruction.
How should be the relation between citizens and the government?
Good government can exist when the relation between the citizens and the government is like that exemplified by Lord Ramachandra and his citizens. Lord Ramachandra ruled his kingdom exactly like a father takes care of his children. And the citizens, being obliged to the good government of Lord Ramachandra, accepted the Lord as their father. Thus, the relationship between the citizens and the government should be exactly like that between father and son.
Good citizenship. How can the citizens be obedient? We see that in spite of forcing so many ordinances and laws, people are not obedient sometimes.
You see, when the sons in the family are well trained, they are obedient to father and mother. And when the father is well qualified, he takes good care of the children. People must be trained according to different varnashram occupational duties. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Chatur Varnamaya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. The four Varnas must be established according to varying qualities and work. Simply enforcing laws and ordinances cannot make the citizens obedient and lawful. That is impossible.
What is the criteria for a perfect system?
Perfect system means from which we do not suffer. That's all. We are always anchoring after happiness. So we do not like suffering. So if there is no suffering, that is perfect system.
What are the qualifications of a perfect leader?
No mistakes, no illusion, no cheating, no imperfection. Anyone who commits mistakes, he is illusion, he is a cheater and imperfect. He cannot lead. So, bring any leader of these rascal groups, test with these four principles. He is a misleader.
Who is such a perfect leader?
The leader, the perfect leader, is God. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. You take his leadership, then he will properly guide you.
Can we take any other leader?
We have taken Krishna as leader. We are not taking any other leader.
Yes. I get that point. Yes. Yeah, but why do people not follow if Krishna is the perfect leader?
That is their misfortune. Just like father says, child, do this, but he does not do. Father says, don't touch fire, he touches, so he will suffer.
Yeah, it's suffer. So, good government means, first of all, to accept the supreme being as the real ruler of the government, right?
You cannot directly accept Supreme Being. You must accept the servants of the Supreme Being, the Brahmanas or the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord, as your guides.
Prabhuji, but if man is small and imperfect, how can he execute God's perfect orders for a perfect government?
Srila Prabhupada said, although you may be imperfect, because you are carrying out my order, you are becoming perfect. You have accepted me as your leader, and I accept God as my leader. In this way, society can be governed perfectly. So we just follow Srila Prabhupada as it is, and our governing will also be perfect.
I see. Prabhuji, why the representative of God must be obedient to Krishna?
Because king is a representative of God. That is Vedic conception. King or the president, the chief executive, he should be exactly the representative of God. A guru is a representative of God. Similarly, the king or president is also a representative of God. In every planet, because every planet, Ishavasam idam sarvam, everything belongs to God. Bhoktaram yajnatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. I am the supreme owner of every planet. So every planet is the property of Krishna. Therefore, to govern that planet, there must be a king who is actually the representative of Krishna. That fact is that everything belongs to God. Ishavasam sarvam. Therefore, the representative of God must be obedient to God, and then his position will be legitimate.
What is the significance of the leader being Rajarshi?
The spiritual science is not understandable by ordinary men. Just like Krishna says in the 4th chapter, Imam Rajarshayo Vidhu, this science was understood by great Rajarshis. So spiritual science is meant for the great personalities, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, not for Vaishyas and Shudras. One has to get the quality of Brahman and Kshatriya. So Krishna says, therefore, Evam Rajarshayo Viduhu, unless one is a rishi, a great saintly person, one cannot understand the spiritual science. Without being a saintly person, how can he become the representative of God? A king is supposed to be representative of God. So unless he has got godly character, saintly character, great devotee, how can he become the head of the state?
You mean Bhagavad Gita is not understood by everyone?
Unless one is a rishi, great saintly person, one cannot understand the spiritual science.
Does that mean that Bhagavad Gita is not taught to ordinary people?
Oh yes, it is taught in the education system for people to understand Bhagavad Gita also. The king, the saintly king understood it, not ordinary man. Therefore, a king, monarch is supposed to be saintly. He must understand the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita and he should introduce education system so that people may understand Bhagavad Gita or the science of God. That is the first duty of the state of the king.
You said the king is called Naradev, like God. He is worshipped as God. Why is the king worshipped as God?
Because the king is supposed to be the representative of God. Naradev. King is addressed as Naradev. The king must be representative of God. Therefore, we offer so much honor to the king, exactly like God. Why? Because king is supposed to be the representative of God.
What if he does not execute the will of God and do not represent God?
I said, that is an Avanidruka. These rascals who are going against the laws of God, they are rebellious. They are rebellious. The king's duty is to see as a representative of Krishna, as representative of God. Otherwise, what right he has got to take so much honor from the citizens? He has no right. So, these two things are going on. Those who are trying to capture the governmental power for his personal ambition, they will be killed. They will be killed. This way or that way, they will be killed. And persons who are taking responsibility for maintenance of the government as a representative of Krishna, they will be blessed by Krishna and Krishna will be pleased. The king's duty is to act as the representative of Krishna or God. Otherwise, what right does he have to take so much honor from the citizens? He has no rights.
What are the qualifications of a Rajarshi?
Formerly, the kings were Rajarshis, which meant that although they were serving as kings, they were as good as saintly persons because they would not transgress any instruction of Vedic scriptures and would rule under the direction of great saintly persons and Brahmins. The king of the country or the emperor of the empire must be so trained that by nature he renounces sense gratification. It is not that because one becomes a king he should unnecessarily spend money for sense gratification. As soon as kings became degraded, spending money for sense gratification, they were lost.
Is it necessary that the ruler must be a great devotee as a Rajarshi? Is it necessary?
He should be a Rajarshi, a saintly person. Without being saintly person, how he can become the representative of God? A king is supposed to be the representative of God. So unless he has got godly character, saintly character, great devotee, how can he become the head of the state?
Great devotee means which caliber devotee should the ruler be?
Mahabhagvat.
Mahabhagavad.
Yes, Mahabhagvat. That is Krishna consciousness moment. That people, you become devotees, Bhagavad, and you select one Mahabhagavad to be your ruler. Then you will be happy. Not only Bhagavad, not your caliber, but still further. There are Bhagavad. There are three kinds of devotees. Three kinds of devotees means neophyte, middle class, and Mahabhagavad. So Mahabhagavad. It does not mean a great devotee is simply engaged in chanting Hare Krishna mantra. No. A great devotee may be a chief of the executive function of the state. He can become. That is required. Not only Mahabhagavats required in churches or temples, no. Mahabhagavat required also as the head of the chief executive function. That is also required. Otherwise, how people will be happy? every field, there must be Mahabhagavat.
What is a Mahabhagavat?
Mahabhagavat means one who can see God in everything and everything in God. That is a Mahabhagavat. That is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Sarva bhuteshu yah pashyed atma. He does not see anything except God. Everything in God and God in everything. That is the qualification of a Mahabhagavat.
I see. Is one head necessary? Is it needed? What about democratic style? Or do we need a head even in democracy?
Nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam. Just like in modern days government, they have abolished monarchy. But still, why they elect a president? Why?
Must be a leadership.
Must be. That is the point. If you have abolished monarchy, then why you electing another rascal to become a monarch? What is the answer? Why do you need it?
Because they need law and order.
Yeah, there must be. In our organization, just like in each temple, we elect a president. Then we get GBC. Then above all, Prabhupada is. So that is needed. It is not conventional, it is needed. The advantage of monarchy is there. By votes, one can elect somebody as the president. One has to follow the principle monarch, one man on the head of the government. It may be a monarch or it may be a president, it doesn't matter. But there must be one chief executive officer of the state on the state that you cannot avoid. That is essential.
Is it the same as in democracy? In democratic system also, the head of the government is the servant of the people, right?
No, Prabhu. It is exactly not what you say. The king is rather the servant of God, not people. Servant, but not of people, but of God. Servant of God. The king, as an administrator of the state, executed his duties as a servant of Brahman. It was not that the kings or Brahmanas were dictators, nor did they consider themselves proprietors of the state. The kings were also well versed in Vedic literatures and thus were familiar with the injunction of Sri Isha Upanishad. Ishavasyamadam sarvam. Everything that exists belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna also confirms that he is the proprietor of all planetary systems, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Since this is the case, no one can claim to be the proprietor of the state. The king, president or head of the state should always remember it. He is not the proprietor, but the servant. In the present age, the king or the president forgets that he is the servant of God and thinks himself as servant of people. The present democratic age is proclaimed to be people's government, the government of the people, for the people, but this type of government is not sanctioned by Vedas. The Vedas maintain that kingdom should be governed for the purpose of satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead and should therefore be ruled by a representative of God.
Prabhuji, if the government is the representative of God, and if he rules for the satisfaction of God, then how will people be satisfied? Why are you laughing?
Because you seems like forgetting the basics, Prabhu.
What basics?
Because Vishnu is the root of everything, if Vishnu is pleased, everyone is pleased. In particular, one's children and family members will become happy in all respects. Never forget the basic principles of happiness. Never forget it.
Hari Bol. Sorry, I got caught up with the government stuff.
Oh, it's okay. The modern theories of management and governance propagate the idea of materialism, selfishness, and godlessness in practical life. Therefore, if one is not conscious, a devotee may find it difficult to connect even the basic principles of Krishna consciousness to real life. Never mind. Just don't get caught up with the modern lifestyle. Take lessons from Prabhupada and you'll see things in proper perspective. Everything of practical life is connected to Krishna, Prabhu. Everything is connected to Krishna.
Yes, bro, yes.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead.
Yes. Why is the king the absolute governing body?
So everything depends on the king's accepting the absolute instruction of God. The ministers were helping, but the king was educated by God's direct instruction. As Krishna said, Imam Vivaspate Yogan Proktavan, the king in the Vedic civilization, the king was absolutely following the regulation of God, and it was confirmed by saintly persons and sages. Then it was executed, not whimsically. There was an advisory board of monarch always. They were not politicians, diplomats, but they were all saintly persons, knew very well the Vedas, and they used to guide the monarch. Therefore, the monarch is absolute governing body. The king is supposed to be the representative of God in the state. So, above the law means because the king is perfect by abiding the laws of God, he cannot be subjected to any subordinate laws. But his perfection is there only when he follows Krishna's orders.
Yes. Well, Prabhuji, uh, what if the state does not respect the rules of standard scriptures like Manu Samhita?
If the king or dictator individually or members of the government collectively cannot maintain the state or the kingdom according to the rules of Manu Samhita, certainly their government will not endure.
I heard that the king is above the law. So, do you mean that the king is not above the law?
No one is above God's laws. No, the king is also under the laws. King, as we understand from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna instructed the laws to sun god and he followed the laws. Therefore, he is to the common man the supreme. The king is supposed to be the representative of God in the state. So, above the law means because the king is perfect by abiding the laws of Krishna, he cannot be subjected to any subordinate laws. But this perfection is there only when he follows Krishna's order.
I see. Prabhuji, while most places Prabhupada says that the president or the king is not an autocrat, still at times I've seen some places where Prabhupada says that the king is an autocrat. So is he an autocrat or not?
Yes and no. It's contextual. When it comes to making laws or following the orders of saintly persons and Brahmins, he is not an autocrat. But when it comes to establishing God's laws for people in general, he is an autocrat. Let's see how the king is an autocrat. See, Joe Prabhu, the aim of ruling is simply to establish the laws of God over citizens so that everyone makes progress back to Godhead. If the king or the head of the government does not have the power to exercise, then how will he establish God's laws over the citizens? Just like the modern state, the modern elected executive head of a state is just like a puppet because he has no kingly power. Even if he is enlightened like Maharaj Yudhishthir, he cannot do anything out of his own goodwill due to his constitutional position. That's why the head of the government needs to have complete power to rule over the citizens and establish laws of God. So, in that sense, he is an autocrat because he is establishing the will of God for citizens. That's why even in ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada has said that the GVCs are the final governing authority. Now, this authority is needed to establish God's laws. But again, this authority is valid only if they establish God's laws coming via disciplic succession. Now let's see why king is not an autocrat. Again, the aim of the ruling is to establish the laws of God over the citizens so that everyone obeys God and makes progress back to Godhead. But if the king starts to establish anything other than the law of God, then it's a failure of the whole civilization. That's why the king is not above God's laws. So, in that sense, he is not an autocrat in making laws. He is bound to establish only God's laws. Also, the process is to accept God's laws via exalted Brahmins and saintly persons. Therefore, The Brahmanical culture is above Kshatriya culture. Therefore, this division must be there. Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. The administrators, the kings, they are Kshatriyas. But above them, the Brahmanas are there. The saintly persons are involved in many ways, and accordingly, king subordinates to their instructions. Indeed, the head acts as a servant of the saintly persons and exalted Brahmins. They are not autocrat. Imam Rajarshayo Viduhu. They understood the science of Bhagavad Gita from saintly persons, exalted Brahmins. They ruled. All the Kshatriyas, kings, would be always accompanied by hordes of Brahmins. As soon as they required any instruction, immediately consult the Brahmins. And they gave good advice. Do like this. This is the business of Brahman. And the kings, they would not do anything without consulting. Don't think because there was monarchy, they were all autocrat. No. If the Brahmanas would not agree, then they wouldn't do. The Brahmins community, all saintly persons and learned scholars, Brahmanas, there was a committee, and the king would take their advice how to manipulate the political affairs or administration, and they would consult standard books. So with respect to God's laws and saintly people, king was not autocrat, because via them he received God's order. And with respect to people, the king is an autocrat because he wants to establish God's order amongst them. It's all about obeying God's order, Jo Prabhu. All about obeying God's order.
Yes, I understand. Very clear. Prabhuji, in some places Prabhupada says that Brahmanas advise the king, and other places it seems like they would instruct and order the king. So do the saintly people and Brahmanas advise or order the king? Is it a compulsion or just an advice?
If someone says to you, please do not give vote to the rogues, so will it be an advice or an order?
Oh, certainly. It is just an advice.
Okay, so if I tell you that this is actually a statement by Prabhupada, then what will you say? Is it an order or an advice?
Oh, in that case, it's an order for me.
But Prabhupada is simply requesting, and even you just said that it was a request. Why do you now say that it's an order?
Because Srila Prabhupada has higher knowledge than me. He will always speak from scriptures and will always do good to me. His desire is as good as God's desire. For me, his desire is an order and request is a command.
Exactly. Similarly, although the Brahmins and saintly persons only advised, still the kings would never transgress their instructions because they were more wise in understanding the principles of scriptures. Moreover, they not only advised but also ordered and instructed. Just like Prabhupada not only advised but also instructed and ordered too. But even his advice is taken as an order.
Yes, I understand.
The great kings were very responsible in taking the instructions given by great saintly personalities. The kings used to accept the instructions given by great sages like Parashara, Vyasadeva, Narada, Devala and Asita. In other words, they would first accept the authority of saintly persons and then execute their monarchical power. Unfortunately, in the present age of Kali, the head of the government does not follow the instructions given by saintly persons. Therefore, neither the citizens nor the men of the government are very happy. Their duration of life is shortened, and almost everyone is wretched and bereft of bodily strength and spiritual power. If citizens want to be happy and prosperous in this democratic age, they should not elect rascals and fools who have no respect for saintly persons. All the Kshatriyas, kings, would be always accompanied by hordes of Brahmins. As soon as they required an instruction, immediately consult the Brahmins. And they gave good advice. Do like this. This is the business of the Brahman. And the kings, they would not do anything without consulting. Don't think that because there was monarchy, they were all autocrat. If the Brahmanas would not agree, then they wouldn't do. In fact, they would act as their servants. The king, as the administrator of the state, executed his duties as a servant of the Brahmanas.
Prabhuji, what if the king does not listen to the Brahmanas or saintly people?
If they do not listen to the Brahmanas, then they are unworthy and must be dethroned.
You mean if the head of the institution does not take instruction of Brahmanas, then they are unworthy of ruling and that they should be dethroned?
Yes, the king, as the administrator of the state, executed his duty as servant of the Brahmanas. If a king is acting independently and not in line with the scriptures, the Brahmanas would dethrone the king and post another worthy person. As the future heir of the throne, he was trained, and at the same time, he was guided by a council of learned sages and Brahmins. They would look over the activities of the king. As soon as there was some mistake, they will see. And there were instances. Whenever there was a bad king, they were dethroned. First class men, Dvijavarya Shikshaya, they used to teach. They used to advise. And if the king was worthless, sometimes they would kill the king. And next son, his son would take possession. The king is supposed to be a Rajarshi. What kind of Rajarshi is he if he does not care for Vedic instructions and does not take direction from saintly persons and Brahmins? In fact, the Rajarshis are called Rajarshis because they would not transgress any instructions of the Vedic scriptures and would rule under the direction of the saintly persons and Brahmins. According to this arrangement, modern presidents, governors, and chief executive officers are all unworthy of their posts because they are not conversant with Vedic administrative knowledge and they do not take instruction from great saintly persons and Brahmins. Because of his disobedience to the orders of Vedas and the Brahmanas, King Vena, Prithu Maharaj's father, was killed by the Brahmanas. Prithu Maharaj therefore knew very well that it behooved him to rule the planet as the servant of the saintly persons and Brahmins.
Does that mean that actually the Brahmins are ruling?
True. So in those days, we learn Dvijavarya Shikshaya. Actually, the Brahmanas, they were controlling the state. But not directly, not sitting on the throne, but giving the king good advice according to the Shastra that you rule over like this. This is the process. And the king would abide by. So, if the king was a saintly person himself, he would naturally obey the saintly people and Brahmins. And if the king does not have any respect for the Brahmins and act independently, then he would be dethroned. So, in effect, it was actually an order.
So in effect, Brahmana's advice is actually an order.
Yes.
Why is a Brahman selected for guiding?
Why the Brahmanas are selected to guide? Because they have got full Vijnana. Jnana Vijnana Astihyam. Therefore. Now, Jo Prabhu, here I want to bring your attention to one very important fact. You see, in ISKCON, during Srila Prabhupada times, Prabhupada advised the GBCs. And out of great respect, the GBCs would take it as his order. Prabhupada also had the dethroning power of GBC. And of course, Prabhupada was a Dvijavarya Shikshaya. He had all knowledge of the scriptures and Bhagavad Gita obtained in a bona fide disciplic succession. And Srila Prabhupada would observe the working of GBCs to see if they are acting according to his instructions. Thus, Prabhupada acted as a natural Brahman of ISKCON. So in Prabhupada's times, ISKCON indeed had a close to ideal governing, a Brahma Dhruva situation.
Oh yes, how appropriate it was. I never realized that. That is so exciting to understand.
Yes.
But Prabhuji, after Srila Prabhupada's disappearance from the world, there seems to be no Brahman who guides and instructs the GBC. There isn't any Brahman having any official authorization to observe if the GBCs are acting according to the instructions given by Srila Prabhupada. Nor do any Brahman have the official power to dethrone the GBCs if they are not acting according to the instruction of the scriptures. What happens now?
Unfortunately, it is true. Even Prabhupada said that Varnashram is not established in ISKCON. Ideally, the GBCs must appoint a Brahman community who gives advice to the GBCs according to the revealed scriptures. Now, there is a Brahman committee in ISKCON, but not this kind of Brahman committee. A Brahman committee who does not act as the servant of the GBC but as an authority above the GBC, watching over the activities of the GBC and give advice authorized by Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. But of course, to establish such a committee is entirely GBC's call. But you should also understand that without such arrangement, Varnashram can't be established absolutely at all anywhere in ISKCON. The head must change first, then the body will follow. It does not work other ways. Now, the GBCs may even want to do that, but there is another problem.
I know Brahmins. Who do we consider a qualified Brahman, right?
True. Because in Kali Yuga, everyone is a Shudra. Finding even one pure Brahman is not easy in Kali Yuga. And without becoming a qualified Brahman, nobody can understand spiritual science or God's laws. What to speak of establishing it?
Then what's the solution?
Okay, for now, all that I shall tell you is that Srila Prabhupada has given the solution. But we need to first understand the process of coming to Sattvagun or becoming a Brahman. And we shall understand that when we talk about the social system of Varnashram. But currently, we are talking of the political system of Varnashram.
Alright, then please tell me more about the Brahmins and the role of saintly persons.
Yes, but is it alright if we first talk of the laws, God's laws, and then we come to Brahmins and the roles?
Oh yes, Prabhuji, please.
Thank you. Thank you for being considerate. So, now, the laws.
Hare